happen to know a case where Al Jazeera anchorman Yusri Fuda was arrested in Syria. So, you know, but in any case, yes. Right here? No, I'm sorry. We have Rose.
Okay. It is not a secret that Al Jazeera was founded and sponsored and funded by government of Qatar, you know, and until this day, it is not true that we didn't get a cent out of advertising. We do. But, you know, by choice, I would say that we are not very keen on commercializing Al Jazeera, especially news channel. Why? Advertising in the region is controlled by governments, and a lot of advertisers will not put their ads on Al Jazeera unless we have good relationship with these governments. Commercialization of Al Jazeera means that we have to be friendly with all Arab governments in the region, and that will be the end of Al Jazeera as we know it. So therefore, we do not accept to be, fully to put commercial standards above professional standards. The agreement that we have with Qatar has been respected for the last 13 years. Qatar established Al Jazeera, but Qatar does not dictate the editorial policy of Al Jazeera. Qatar has, benefited from Al Jazeera because it has hosted Al Jazeera, and Al Jazeera helped also the introduction of Qatar to the world because it really made Qatar obvious on international and on regional scene. But that does not mean that Al Jazeera took a line to defend the state of Qatar or to be the spokesperson of the Qatari foreign politics. That is not the true. If it was true, we would have never been accepted by the Arab audience as the most credible news source, because many other channels in the region were established with billions of dollars, much more than what Qatar spent on Al Jazeera, but they could not really match Al Jazeera in its credibility and popularity in the Arab world because they always continue to be the mouth of certain governments. That was a red line that we did not cross at all.
Yes, ma'am.
My name is Christina Tennant. I'm a UN consultant and writer who has lived in the Middle East, lived and worked in the Middle East for 10 years, and as such, I have a special knowledge and affection for the Arab people. Ahlan wa sahlan.
Thank you.
I remember, well, I've been a follower and admirer of Al Jazeera ever since you people began, because having lived in the Middle East and listening to the coverage here, listening to the coverage in Europe and in the Middle East, because I don't get my news just from U.S. sources, because it's very hard to get the real news here. And I really want to commend you on the service that you provide for the world community, not just for your own region. My question is, at the moment, do you have foreign journalists working on your staff? And
Do we have foreign?
Foreign journalists,
Yeah.
and which countries they're from? And what is the editorial policy regarding their coverage of the news? Is there any?
Great, thank you.
Okay.
We have actually the most diverse maybe newsroom in the world when it comes
I
to.
can validate that.
We have about 53 nationality working for our newsroom from the entire Arab world and from all over the world. From America, from Britain, from Latin America, Africa, Asia, wherever you go. I mean, our recruitment policy is to look at the credential of the journalist himself, regardless of his, nationality, religion, culture, whatever the case. Because, and by the way, I always tell the people, such kind of diversity in a newsroom is difficult to streamline in certain direction. I mean, if there is a conspiracy that would like to establish an editorial policy that would like to impose, you don't bring all these kind of people and tell them, please, I would like you to follow this line. Diversity within Al Jazeera is actually an assurance that Al Jazeera is independent, because every journalist has joined Al Jazeera was never pressurized at all, and we have people from all walks of life with us. Then we never dictated on them how the editorial policy should be. Otherwise, we would have been really in a bad shape.
Very back. Yeah, the gentleman with his hand up. Fortunately, I'm blinded by the light, so I can't quite see you, but that's the right guy.
Yeah, my name's Jonathan Gelwer. I'm from Radio Free Europe, Radio Liberty. I have a question. You mentioned that based on Al Jazeera's coverage, you don't want your children to grow up in the shadow of guns, and you want everyone to have a peaceful future and things like this. But I watch Al Jazeera and I see things like the birthday celebration for Samir Kuntar, the terrorist from Lebanon, and similar glorifications of this type of thing, and I wanted to know how you can balance that with what you said today.
Okay, thank you very much. You know, in issues related to the concept of terrorism, in principle, we have a difficulty of understanding or dealing with, and maybe there are certain issues regarding to terrorism has not been clarified properly, you know, especially the definition of who is the terrorist and who is not the terrorist. This is why the editorial policy of Al Jazeera since the beginning was not to use the word terrorism unless if it's qualified. The so-called terrorist, so-called terrorism. If we would like to take certain standards in describing who is the terrorist and who is not the terrorist, we will appoint ourselves as judges and start distributing titles on people. So we rather describe things as it is. We don't say terrorist movement, we say the name of the movement. We don't say the terrorist leader, we say the name of the leader and the group that he is leading, simply, you know. So if you come to the region, the issue of terrorism is very relative. A lot of people who we may internationally feel that they are terrorists, for some people they may not think that they are terrorists. And then we'll go into huge argument. We as a media organization, we don't feel that we should like really to go into that discussion. We just describe the phenomena or the story as it is, without getting involved in giving judgment. It is politically loaded terminology, and I feel much better to distance ourselves from it. And we, by the way, we were not the only network or media organization in the world that ceased from using the word terrorism and terrorists. So there are relative stories that we could cover, and it could look sometimes as, you know, like the issues of promoting, or not promoting. We were accused of promoting Osama bin Laden tapes. It was not true. We did cover Osama bin Laden's speeches and Ayman al-Zawahiri speeches, as we covered every other incident and newsworthy event that happened in the region, based on certain professional standards. And we felt that it is our duty to do so. Now, a lot of people argued, especially here in the West, that once you put Osama bin Laden on the screen, it means you are promoting his terroristic ideas, or so on and so forth. We thought that it is not true. Professional standards say that there is an event. When Osama speaks, that is news. We cover it. But that doesn't mean we glorify it. Actually, sometimes we help in demystifying this kind of discourse, because it will be followed by analysis, it will be followed by a lot of discussion, and a lot of people will be doubtful about certain issues. We are teaching our people to be more rational in receiving stories like that or speeches like that, and allow them to have some kind of time to contemplate and to think about this so-called terrorist or that so-called terrorist.
This gentleman here.
Thank you. Brian Toro from the Center for American Progress. Though the Obama administration has recently engaged with the Syrians and they've broached the possibility of engaging with the Iranians, its stance on engaging with Hamas so far has pretty much mirrored that of the Bush administration. Do you think the time to engage Hamas has come, and is this the kind of tangible step that the Arab public sphere is looking for? And Mr. Clemens, if you could chime in as well, that'd be great.
Thank you. You know, I would like to say that in general, I feel that we should speak to all. I'll give you a story from Al Jazeera. When we started in 1996, Arab media did not host Israelis. They took a stance against the Israelis because they think that hosting Israelis is normalization. Al Jazeera was the first TV station to allow the Israelis to appear on the screen, including officials, including military, and including analysts. We were condemned at that time because this is not patriotic. We are going against the Arab. Until today, actually, when I stand in a press conference or a lecture in Cairo or in Rabat or any other capital in the Arab world, the major issue that I will be confronted with is the issue of hosting the Israelis. We will be accused always that we are normalizing relationship between the Arab world and the Israelis. I think, as a journalist and as someone who's living in this region, that we need to talk to everyone. Simply, you know. And I think in order to talk to everyone, you need also to, you know, think of him as someone who could evolve and change. And people do change. When you put someone on the screen, regardless of how extremist is he, when you put him on the screen, he behaves differently. And his discourse becomes more moderate in general. And I have in my mind, something that I say always, that the camera has effect on extremists and on many other people, because it leads them to be a little bit more rational in their thinking, because now they are not preaching in dark corners for their converts. They are reaching to the public. They need to sound a little bit more reasonable. So always talking to the people and allowing them to speak is important in media and important in politics.